Hello, good evening, and welcome back to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast, brought to you by the Last Man Standing with loserpool.com. As ever, I'm your host, Harry Symeou, and we're back with another show, a live show, with a very special guest. Hello, good evening, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm joined by a very special guest, the one and only Mr. Deluded Gooner. Welcome to the show, mate. Making your debut. How are you, my friend?
I love, man. You gave the best introduction possible, man. I was building up for that moment and it came. I didn't know what to say, man. I'm great, man. As usual, H, man. Thank you for having me and whatnot. So yeah,
no worries at all, man. The pleasure is mine. Been trying to get hold of you for a while.
Yeah,
was
man.
Trying to get you on
for this for a minute, man.
I know. It's just how life is, isn't it? It's how things unfold sometimes. But here we go. We're here now. Lots and lots of thoughts that I've been sharing on the channel over the last few weeks in regards to how Arsenal have started the season. We've spoken about Granit Xhaka. We've spoken about Unai Emery. The signings that we made, some of the outgoings. Lots and lots has been going on at Arsenal over the summer. The start to the season, I guess, in my opinion, has been okay. It's not been great, but it's not been terrible. So there's no real need to overreact on that. But I wanted to get your thoughts. What are you feeling after the first sort of few games of the season? And, and in regards to the manager, because I take a lot of stick for criticizing the manager.
After that episode, yeah, both of us.
Mate, I got battered on that. I got absolutely battered
so
on that.
So did I, man. Fans are harsh. Like, wow. But then we've all seen what happened. But in terms of my opinion, in regards, first and foremost, to the season, bro, like you said, it's not been amazing. It hasn't been terrible. Going back to pre-season, we were obviously optimistic and whatnot. We did some good business in the window. We started off with getting over the line with victories over Burnley and Newcastle. We should be taking 6 points in that game because we knew the two games that had to follow. I feel the Liverpool games is a funny one for me because I still don't know where I particularly stand on that one, because on one hand, I saw a game plan that I didn't necessarily agree with, but it looked like we've been working on the week at something and they implemented it. So it gave me encouragement that they're actually listening to Emery now and we start as we means to go on. Against Spurs fans can say they should have won. We can say that we should have won, but it's still, like you said, it's not been terrible. It's been expected in the sense of individual mistakes, bro. Like individual mistakes again. I'm not going to scapegoat individuals because there's not actually one individual. David Luiz, I think he's been all right, but he obviously made 2 against Liverpool. Xhaka obviously with the penalty against Spurs, and before that we saw Leno and who is the other one? Socrates. So there's still a lot of teething problems that still exist from last season in terms of the errors and whatnot. But there's been encouragement, in particular for me, the young players. But all in all, I share your sentiments, man. It's not been amazing, but it's not been terrible. It is what it is. We just have to lick our wounds and go again on Sunday.
Absolutely. A big hello to those of you watching us live at the moment. Jolly on Twitter says, hey, I think that's supposed to say Gooners, not Goners. I hope so anyway. We've got lots and lots of you watching live at the moment. Big thank you to every single one of you, whether you're watching on YouTube, Twitter. We're not streaming to Facebook anymore because we had a few issues with that. So it was affecting the stream. So I've taken that out. But of course, you can also listen back to the audio on iTunes, on Spotify, SoundCloud, all the usual places. Deluded, my friend, your thoughts on Granit Xhaka in particular. Now, the reason I ask you this is because he's somebody that really, really divides the camp. It seems to me that you are either a Granit Xhaka fan and that you'll defend him, or you absolutely despise him. I'm finding it very hard to find that middle ground, and I'm not sure why. What are your what is your takes on it, I guess?
We could be here all day about Xhaka, man. Like you said, he divides opinion. He's divided myself. It almost feels like I've got the devil and the angel on either shoulder telling me why he's good and why he isn't. He's for me, if I was manager, I could make a place for him in the squad. He wouldn't be playing as frequently as he does for me. No disrespect to him. I do think to a degree he is a liability. He is a good long-range passer of the ball, but I think his short-range passing, maybe statistically looks good, needs a lot to be desired. I like him as an individual and as a player, but I think his lack of mobility. I do think he makes a lot of mistakes, and as we've seen, they're well documented, and I touched on it earlier. But at the same time, I have seen good games from him, and I think he's one of those players where it divides opinion. People have made their beds. You either love him or you hate him, or there's very few middle ground. I think I've seen decent games from him, but at the end of the day, £40 million. If you ask me to name the best performances of him, I'm kind of ahhing and oohing. He has had some good games, like I said, but he's all in all, he's not my cup of tea, to be fair with you. I like him in the squad, but he wouldn't be playing quite frequently as he is. That being said, Emery and previously Wenger know more than me, so there must be a reason. I just don't see how his pros outweigh his cons. I just don't. Maybe people say if he was, I know you watch a lot of Italian football as well, so maybe you could answer this. A lot of people say if he was to go to Italy, it's a slower league and whatnot, he might excel there. Because I do think, to a degree, I think I exaggerate it personally, but I do think his agility and his mobility kind of harms our midfield in terms of the many issues we have on top of it. I feel Torreira's not been perfect, but they're probably the most consistent pivot at Arsenal, the strongest pivot of sorts. But I do think Torreira has to work double the effort because of Xhaka. So yeah, man, I don't know where I stand. If I was the gaffer, he'd be used in the squad. He wouldn't be playing as frequently under me, but they know more than me, so it's a difficult one.
I think for me, it's not that I think people take this a lot the wrong way a lot of the time. It's not that I think Granit Xhaka is the best midfielder in Europe. It's not that I think that. It's not that I think he's better than most Premier League centre midfielders. It's more the case that I think in our midfield, he gives us something that we don't really have in anybody else. That's kind of my sort of reason. And there's got to be something, because Unai Emery picks him. Arsene Wenger picked him before that. Switzerland won't drop him. He's obviously got something that managers and coaches see. Maybe it's a lot of people talk about his leadership. I don't think he really displayed that or covered himself in glory with the comments he made regarding missed chances. I thought that was a bit silly. Let's go over to some of the comments that we're getting through at the moment. Lots of you saying hello. Turkish is watching live. He says, I can't be a fan of his.
Man, like Turkish. Big up Turkish, man.
Xhaka is shit.
I mean, we can't repeat that one. I can't repeat that. I need to plug the show on my channel as well. That's why I keep looking at my phone. Where's the latest link?
On YouTube? It's on YouTube. It's somewhere.
Oh, man. I'm gonna plug all of this right now.
So yeah, Turkish says he's a shit. Archie says sometimes shit, most times shit. Charlie Dalton says I love Deluded. Some love.
Shout out to you, Charlie, man. Pick up yourself, man.
Turkish says, so how does he split opinion? He does split opinion, because there are Arsenal fans. There are Arsenal fans that back him. Yeah, there are Arsenal fans that back him, and I'm in the middle of this, because I can't make excuses for some of the mistakes he makes. But I also can kind of see why he gets in the team. So I'm kind of on the fence. And another thing as well, and I'll put this to Turkish, because, he's someone who's very pro Unai Emery, and, fair enough. But if you're going to slag off Xhaka every week and you're going to say, why does Xhaka play? Why does Xhaka this? Why does Xhaka that? Why don't you slag off the man who picks him every week and the man who's given him the captain's armband, because he has done that? So surely, if you're that anti-Xhaka and everybody can see how bad he is, then surely you got to get onto the manager. But it's like people want to criticize Xhaka, but they don't want to criticize the manager. So I find that really difficult to understand. It's either one or the other, isn't it? Surely.
I don't think Xhaka is a bad player. He just makes bad decisions. And to be fair, people could say that makes you a bad player. I do think he's not. You can't say he's technically poor. He can ball. Let's be honest. And he has had some good games. I just see the frustration because he just doesn't pull it out more often than not. Personally, I like his mentality. I have question marks over both him and Kolasinac, and they both go missing at times. But I like their mentality in that they're not on being roughed up and whatnot. That doesn't mean you should play in the team, but we've been lacking that for a while. I think my issue with Xhaka is actually beyond Xhaka. It's like, if I look at Arsenal as an opposing manager, and for want of better words, not trying to be harsh on these individuals, but you're looking at it and you're calling them liability. Xhaka, it is overstated at times, but Xhaka's got an error in him. David Luiz is a competent centre-half, but he's an open book. We all know from time to time, David Luiz is going to do some questionable stuff, as saw against Liverpool. And then you saw the individual. I like Leno, but Leno has to hold his hands up from the Spurs game. So we've got people who make individual errors within our team, and just as a team, we make a lot of errors. My problem, and the way we need to advance as a team, we need to either minimize these with individuals, or we need to get them out of the team. Central midfield has always been a big position in football. Arguably now, because Arsenal are missing a physical presence or someone to get up and down the field, we're looking at it. Xhaka's obviously unofficially at this point been made captain, so we're looking at it. And to be fair, if you was to say 10 games, I don't know what I'm getting from Xhaka, so I fully understand it. It's a difficult one. Like you said, you do have to look at Unai Emery, fair play. I mean, he's playing him. Like you said, we might not see it, but he's giving him something, or he deems he adds something to the side. So you do probably have to look at that. And I do feel people are starting to look at some of Unai Emery's decisions, because he's starting Xhaka. Why is he playing Aubameyang on the flanks? Why is he doing this and the other? Now, he's within his rights to do these things, but people in his second season, they're not, I feel the whole sort of, not charade, but the whole blah you can kind of get of it being your first season it's kind of gone away a bit, and people, because of the optimism of what we've done in the transfer market, people are looking at it like, Emery, you've been back to what are you going to do now for me?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Turkish was in the comments, we've called him out, and he has not disappointed. It's like one of those WWE moments. I'm waiting for the Stone Cold Steve Austin music to come out.
Heavy D or something.
Turkish is here.
Hey, we say Heavy D, you know. I was thinking more Stone Cold Steve Austin. Man said Heavy D.
Welcome to the show, mate. Welcome, mate. How are you, first of all?
Yeah, I'm good, man. How are you guys?
Good.
Sweet, man. Bad. Sweet as we can be with Arsenal.
Yeah.
That's it. Go on, Turkish. Let's have your thoughts on Granit Xhaka. Let's have it.
When I said how does he split opinion, it was more an expression of confusion. Because I don't understand how he splits opinion. People talk about his passing range. How can people talk about Granit Xhaka's passing range? Look at Kevin De Bruyne's passing range. That is passing.
That's harsh, though, man. I get you. No, I agree, but that's harsh, bro.
It's not harsh, bro. He can't even do short passes.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. He struggles with that.
He passes it to other people. So how is his passing range the thing that people give him plaudits for? Yes, he can swing it left. Yes, he can swing it right, as every professional footballer should be able to do. It's like the old school England thing. Remember when about 10, 15 years ago, he can spray it left. He can spray it right. Rooney's good at spraying the ball. But spraying the ball is not enough. A footballer should be able to spray the ball from Torreira. He doesn't do it enough, really. No, most of them should be able to spray the ball.
No, I'm saying Xhaka don't do it enough, really.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't do it enough. He doesn't have a range. He's not Andrea Pirlo. He's not Kevin De Bruyne. So I want to stop this passing range talk. That's number one. That's his biggest attribute, apparently, his passing range. And his range is abysmal, in my opinion. You compare it to some of the best passers.
Do we overstate his passing range because maybe we lack that in other players in our team? Because whatever you say about Lucas Torreira, he works hard. He's a very dogged player, very tenacious. Love it. But he's not a passer. Matteo Guendouzi, in my opinion, has been wasteful on the ball at times. Yeah, he made a great pass against Spurs in the derby. Not disputing that for a second, but at times he's been wasteful in possession. So is there a danger that we maybe overstate Xhaka's passing ability just because we lack it in other areas?
Probably.
Turkish, you or me?
We tend to do that as Arsenal fans. That we tend to overstate our players' attributes. Like you said, Harry, none of our players are complete. So we look at these players individually; they have their benefits, but none of them are complete. You mold them, all four of them together, then you might have a complete centre mid or deep line playmaker.
Yeah.
Because go on, sorry, did you answer that before I get back?
No, I was gonna say you get, because I thought you had this, man. Like you said, you came through in the WWE thing. I thought you had it, which you did, but yeah, man, I fully agree. For me, I can't lie, I'm slightly different on the opinion of Torreira. Like, I know Xhaka sprays the ball, and let's just assume Xhaka has strengths. Let's just assume Unai Emery says he's got strengths. Personally, I don't see why. I know you said Guendouzi's wasteful and he has to learn from that, but I don't see why Guendouzi can't do what Xhaka does. I personally feel Torreira's not the most expansive, but he can give us a bit more in terms of creativity or whatever Xhaka does. I don't see why they might not be, their long range passing might not be as on point, but I don't see how their passing range is too dissimilar from Xhaka in ability. Like Guendouzi's assist, I feel he can do that more. It's just he's wasteful at the moment. He's a young player. If we can coach that out of him, I don't see why, because yeah, man. I mean, for me, it's the mobility thing. It's the agility thing. It's defensively. On top of not being switched on defensively, I like that Xhaka tries to get about the pitch. But I mean, if I was Xhaka, no disrespect to him, but if I knew I wasn't mobile, I'd be a bit smarter with when I go forward, or I'd at least try to be a bit switched on more defensively. And on top of him just not being at it full stop, it's just a hazard. Like, it's just a hazard. Like I said, I feel I even exaggerate at times. 9 times out of 10, he is calm. People can say what they want about him. You walk away with a game, he's put in an okay performance, but he's just not people's cup of tea. I like him as a footballer. He'd be in my squad. He'd be a squad player. You can get away with him games you're expected to dominate possession at home. But for me, you can't go with Xhaka to Anfield. You can't go with Xhaka to City now. You can't go with Xhaka even to Spurs to a degree. The mentality thing is there. Xhaka doesn't hide, but in terms of the technical ability and stuff, it just doesn't fill me with confidence personally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me say
they're all
something,
valid
Harry.
points. Go ahead, mate.
Should I tell you who does have a better passing range than Xhaka? David
Go ahead, man.
Luiz.
Sorry. Yeah, I agree with that.
Luiz. When Holding comes back, I'd much rather Holding go next to Socrates, David Luiz push up, and then partner David Luiz with a Torreira or a Guendouzi or a Ceballos.
All three or something. Yeah, that's a shout.
Much better passing range. Much better passing. And it's Xhaka, you know.
I don't disagree with that. I think David Luiz could definitely do a good job there. Let's go over to some of the live comments that are coming through in regards to this. Lots of comments, but we'll pick the Xhaka related ones and we'll come back to the others after. Ganesh says, Xhaka plays as a DM in the side. Fabinho and Fernandinho playing a similar position. They have good passing range and at the same time, defensively, they are as solid as you can get.
Xhaka play receiving the ball for centre half. Sorry, man. Sorry, my stream's behind.
No, go ahead, man.
Sorry, can you hear me? My thing's bugging.
No, I can hear you. Can I hear you?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh yeah, sorry, man. I don't. Where is you? Lot? Apologies for ruining it.
That's all right, man. That's all right. Just you said about him not being a DM. Is that what you
Xhaka? Yeah. Sorry, man. Sorry, apologies. Xhaka is not a DM. Like just because you're the first centre mid to get the ball off the centre half does not mean you're a defensive mid. Just because you're a midfielder, you have to defend. But he's not aware. Is this myth that he's a defensive mid? He's not a defensive mid. Walking around and making fouls is not a defensive mid. Xhaka himself described himself last season as a false 10. The man himself said he's not defensive mid. So where are you going with the Fabinho thing? No disrespect to your opinion, but
called himself a false 10, yeah?
Yeah, he said, I swear to God, type it on Google. He said, I'm a false 10 or something. He wants to go forward as a man. He's not a defensive player. Like, that's not me being critical. That's a fact. He's not. What defensive bone has Xhaka got in his body? That's not me being harsh on him because he has been all right at times. But come on now, man. That one there is silly.
He's been dribbled past the most and most fouls conceded, most penalties.
In fairness, the only defense I would have is that if you think about the players that have played in that position before at Arsenal, so if you think of the Coquelins, the Artetas, all those guys that have filled in that role, there's always been a problem there. I'm not saying that Xhaka doesn't deserve any criticism, but there's clearly a problem in the way in which we set up defensively in terms of when we've just lost the ball. In the transition, we're just not good enough, and we always leave those players exposed. Danny says, the more we see of Emery, the more we realise Harry might have been right from day one. That's my favourite comment of the night. Danny is over at the Bergkamp Wonderland podcast, so please do check them out as well. Thanks for tuning in, Danny. Matt Hale says, Xhaka needs half an hour to turn one way on top of the ridiculous challenges. For
that half an hour it takes him to turn one way, it's always the same fucking way because he hasn't got a right side. So
4D says, who would you play instead of Xhaka? Turkish, I'm going to put that one to you. How would you set up the midfield? Would you go with the Lewis
thing? One of the combinations, we could put Xhaka in the reserve team for the rest of the season. It won't have a massive effect. I can't lie to you. I'd play Guendouzi and Torreira. I'd play Torreira and Luiz. I'd play Torreira and Ceballos. I'd play maybe a Willock in front of them. You can play an Ozil in front of them. You can play Ceballos in front of them. You've got a good mix of combinations there that we've realised Xhaka's not going to work with anyone. Like, people used to force it last season and say, yeah, Torreira gets the best at. No, he fucking doesn't. Torreira just brings what he brings to the game. Xhaka just holds the centre mids back in a sense because it shouldn't be Xhaka collecting the ball from the back line. When you're so immobile, when you can't turn one whole way, it shouldn't be you because you're so easy to read from behind as a footballer. You know when you're running into Xhaka which way he's going to turn. It has to be a Torreira. It has to be a Guendouzi to get the ball because at least they're mobile enough to turn both ways. So for me, I got asked the same question. Who would I rely on if it's not Xhaka? And for me, it's anyone. Anyone. He's had too many chances. 3 years in. He talks the talk. He doesn't walk the walk. And recently now he's become captain. And instead of being a leader and taking ownership of the mistakes he makes, he goes on to say, the chances missed.
The chances.
Oh, shut the hell up, mate. Shut the hell up.
So Turkish, in that case, then, why would you not criticize Unai Emery for picking him every week and for making him the captain?
Oh, I will, 100%, and that goes hand in hand. It's only 4 games into the season, and from the first 4 games, I always said minimum 7 points out of 12. That's what we've achieved, minimum. And moving forward, if he continues to select Xhaka and we continue to drop points and continue to embroil ourselves in a top 4 battle when potentially Man United and Chelsea are so disorganized right now, we could potentially get top 4 wrapped up by February, March. But if he persists on playing Xhaka and around January, February, we should be further than we are. And it's down to maybe the selection and playing Xhaka and whoever it is, then yes, Emery does get a lot of blame, because this season now, he should have realised his mistakes from last season. He should have the combinations ready. He should have the triangles ready. He should have the transition ready. Tierney and Bellerin coming back should improve the team. And I can't judge Emery too much yet, considering 3 of our starting 4 backline is out. Any team in the top 6, if 3 of their starting backline is out, they're going to concede goals. So until we get Holding, Bellerin and Tierney back, I have to be wary of being critical of Emery. But that Xhaka thing is really starting to bug me, because I can't see why he keeps on persisting in playing him every fucking week.
Is there, Deluded, I'm going to put this to you. Is there an argument that, so we all know that when Xhaka comes deep to collect the ball, it's a problem. There's been times where he comes back and he's too slow, like Turkish mentioned, to turn. There's a lot of pressure on him. Teams press that area. They know that that's what we're going to do. Is there an argument that now maybe with David Luiz in the side, who is more capable than probably some of our other defensive options, of actually stepping out of the defense and taking that step into the midfield himself, because he is confident and capable enough on the ball, that maybe you shouldn't always ask your DM to come back into that position? And maybe if your DM is going to do that, then your DM has to drop all the way back, almost into the back line to get it. So when he receives it, he's facing the play.
You've answered that question yourself in many ways. First and foremost, I believe yes and no. There should be a phase of play in particular where a midfielder drops off. But at the end of the day, we need to improve defensively first. But touching on what Turkish said, that's where you've got to look at Emery, because we're a long way from being City, for example. But let's just use them as an example. You'll see one midfielder's drop, but you also see a centre-half step out. You also see other midfielders for other options. They don't always make the same pass. We're very predictable in the transition. You know it's going to come to Xhaka. Sooner or later, it's going to find its way on the left-hand side to Kolasinac. And whatever cross he puts in, and we get on the end of it, we score. So Emery's got his stuff to do offensively. It's almost, our midfielders have to be braver. The point you touched on it with David Luiz stepping out. Emery likes to play out from the back. They've got to be confident. So Luiz, we've obviously got to be balanced. Luiz has to want to step out. Holding, when he comes back, has to want to step out. Our fullbacks have to make good runs and have to want the ball. But it's about the other midfielders, and that's where it went on again, what Turkish said, in our transition in midfield and defensively, in specifically the midfield regions. It's not there. We've got many problems in midfield. We're just touching on how we build play. Defensively, we're at 6s and 7s still. My pet peeve with midfield is midfield runners. Like, it's early on in the season. I don't expect it to change. But if you look at the amount of goals we conceded, just because purely a midfielder runner has dropped from deep and ran and not been picked up, has been what bugged me. So you can, if that's what Emery is telling him to do, that's what it is, because that's what we need to think about as well. If what Turkish said, if Xhaka keeps playing, we need to look at it. But if Emery is saying, okay, Xhaka is my guy, I'm going to play him, Xhaka specifically, I want you to go and receive it off the centre halves, then yes, we can critique Xhaka. But at the same time, if he's listening to his manager, what can we really say then? That's where I feel there's a lot of question marks we've got to touch with Emery this season. I back him, he's still my guy, but yeah.
100%. And that's what happened with me and Wenger towards the end. And players like Walcott. I used to rip Walcott year on year. Then I said to myself, does Walcott select himself? Does Walcott go and say, I'm playing today? No, it was that fucking man in charge that keeps on playing him every week. And that's just one example. So I feel like the same will happen to Emery and Xhaka, similar to how people linked Sarri and Jorginho last year. And in the end, it could have been his downfall if they didn't make top 4. It's going to be a similar story here. If Emery doesn't realize that Xhaka is not good enough for this league, and that's what it is. It's this league he's not good enough for. It's too fast-paced for him to be in the middle of the park. He needs to go back to another country and do his stuff there. But if Emery doesn't realize it sooner, then it's gonna be a difficult. Even if we get top 4 next season by the skin of our teeth, and it's due to the fact that he's played Xhaka for the majority of the season, I'm still gonna question whether he is the man to take us into the Champions League era again. But it's just we have to take it as it comes right now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And there is that argument, isn't there? You know, he's obviously doing what he's being asked because he wouldn't be selected if he wasn't. And it was at the start of last season, if you guys cast your minds back, a lot of people were talking about our fullbacks in particular. Before Bellerin got injured, the first few games of the season, people were criticizing him that he was getting forward too much and that, you know, he was committing too much on that right-hand side. But clearly, he was doing what Unai Emery was asking because, if you're not, then you don't get picked. And people always talk about Emery being ruthless and, you know, with the Ozil thing, and he leaves people out if they don't do what he wants. So then that works both ways, doesn't it? So, and you know, I just think that it's like you can criticize individuals for mistakes. You can't pin them always on Emery because he's not to blame for somebody slipping over or giving the ball away. He's not accountable for that. And I don't hold him accountable for that. But ultimately, he is responsible for the performance of the team. So the buck ultimately will stop with the manager, because I can tell you this, if Arsenal fail to achieve their targets this season, it will be the manager that's gone. It won't be the 22-man squad. It will be the manager. So that's kind of, yeah, absolutely. That's kind of where I'm coming from. Now, we're all excited about, obviously, Rob Holding returning. We've got some team news, which I'll share up on the screen for those of you watching on the video now, so you can see that. If you're listening on the audio, apologies, but I will read it out so you can see that as well. So we've got the latest injury update from Arsenal.com. Rob Holding back in full training with the first team squad. I still think that Watford will be too soon for him. Hector Bellerin is continuing with his rehabilitation, progressing well and aiming to participate in full training this month. Kieran Tierney remains out, progressing well, but again, aiming to participate in training. Mavropanos is out and is in the same boat. But lots of people are happy about, of course, Holding coming back. We all are, of course. Bellerin's not far as well. You know, the hope is that we'll get a proper left back in position now. The jury's still out defensively for me on Sead Kolasinac. But Turkish, in terms of our defense, are we missing Holding and Bellerin because they are that good, or because we've missed them? And when we miss someone, you ultimately over exaggerate their value and what they bring to the side. Because I remember us all talking about how bad Bellerin is defensively, and now we're all over the moon that he's nearly back.
But we kid ourselves at times. Like, everyone's linked this whole defensive mantra to these 3 players coming back. Rob Holding is not 30. Bellerin is not 30. Tierney, he's a new signing. He's not 30. But it's the realist. At the end of the day, we had already conceded however many goals by November when Bellerin and Holding got injured. But it just got made to seem like when they got injured, it all unraveled. No, we had conceded a hell of a lot of goals before they got injured. Yes, we was on an unbeaten run, but it was all tight games. We was conceding goals. We wasn't a defensive monster when they was in the squad. So I hope that Bellerin comes back and picks up where he left off from in terms of his improvement. Yes. And I hope Holding does as well in terms of his improvement. But it's not like we're getting Paolo Maldini back in the centre of defence and we're getting Cafu back as a right back. It's still players that have got to prove themselves. You know what I mean? We're acting like it's Tony Adams and fucking Lauren coming back in.
And that's what bugs me about fans, man. That's what bugs me, because it's like people don't recognize people. It's what football fans do. And it's like Holding has, I'm going to stick my neck out and say, has Holding got 100 career appearances yet? He's probably close, but he hasn't. He's still developing. Personally, I love Holding. I think he's just mad naive at times defensively. So when he makes these mistakes and whatnot, people are going to get onto him. It's annoying how, like you said, Harry, like people are just expecting these guys to slide back in and we're going to move crazy. Personally, all I'm hoping for is that you'd have these guys or class them as first choice options. When Emery gets them, I need to see them all in training, and week by week, I need to see small improvements to being proactive defensively and obviously doing what he wants to do in an attacking sense. And then again, as much as we need to start looking at Emery this season, until he has these players available, I can't really sit there and say, well, boy, defensively, we're not progressing the way we should be. That being said, I do think there should still be a base level of how we defend, regardless of first choice options are there or not, because there's going to be injuries in seasons and whatnot. And I personally feel, and I looked at this the other day, I said, regardless of who we play in defense, specifically the back 3 or 4, and Leno, with the exception of Leno, you always see us playing out from the back, right? So if, regardless of who is in defense, we're proactive to that, we know what we're doing, why don't we have some sort of proactiveness when it's marking at set pieces and things? Because if we're still making these mistakes, that's another debate. But if it was a thing where we're watching these goals again, and we're saying, oh, he tried to close him, he followed his man, he did this, but we just conceded, then obviously we need to look at something else. But we haven't made them improvements quite yet. And again, it's like before Turkish jumped on the show, it touches back to individual mistakes. As much as I want to look at Emery, he can't account for some of these things. He can't. I think Luiz has been a decent addition for David Luiz, but he can't account for that mindless stuff at Anfield. He can't account for Xhaka and all them other guys against Spurs. He can't account for me, the biggest one I remember is United away last season, because I feel he set us up tactically perfectly and they let Lingard score and whatnot.
Absolutely, yeah.
We've got to start looking at what's that, man.
Aside from the front 3, aside from Pepe, Lacazette, Aubameyang, we haven't got any other player where we can say, if he was playing, it would have been different. Definitively, we cannot say that about any other player in this squad, but those 3 up front.
What, not Torreira?
Torreira, you cannot say
to a degree. To
a degree, yeah. In the middle, you can argue, and that would be my go-to person in the middle. He has to be the one you partner up with someone. But to a degree, it's only the front 3 that I can say. If you don't play them 3 and we don't outscore the opposition, then yes, you can link it to that. But across the whole other side of the pitch, there's no one I can say that person should have played. Because even against Tottenham, I ripped Xhaka, and he was at fault for the second. But I cannot say 100% if Unai Emery played Torreira Ceballos or Torreira Guendouzi that we would have won the game. I cannot say that for 100%. And that's how I feel. Like, it's just we tend to over our players. We link them to some sort of greatness coming back, or missing such a vital piece in the middle. Like, it's
even like with Pepe though. That's why I get onto fans, because like Pepe was excited to get him, but even in a small section, fans are getting on his back and saying, "Boy, this, that, and the third." Like, imagine if Saliba came, because obviously we need a centre half that's quality. He's 18, he's 6'4", the France with the potential and things, but he's not. He probably is ready and he'll play good, but he's not ready like that. He's not the player of tomorrow, and I feel fans latch onto that and get too excited, and then when they ultimately the same rope that they climb up on, the fans are using it to hang them with, sort of thing. It's like you're killing them by the same standards and writing off players after 6 months or so. It's you can't control that really, because football is illogical and football fans generally are illogical. So I guess it is what it is in that regards.
Absolutely. Let's go back to some of the comments coming through live. This is the strangest comment I've ever seen on any stream that we've done, from Chris Knight. Can somebody tell me what time it is? I don't know if my phone is 10 minutes behind or my laptop time is 10 minutes ahead. I make it 8:05, mate. There you go. Get it sorted.
Get that sorted, man.
And then Nimsy lot ain't 24. Where are you?
Yeah, where are you? You got you, man, if you're watching somewhere else.
That is a new time zone, that one. Egal Ibrahim says, yes, Deluded and Turkish. Lots of love for you guys in the comments at the moment. Right, we're coming towards the end. Was meant to be a half an hour show. We've gone a little bit over, but that's no problem. Turkish bursting onto the scene like Stone Cold Steve Austin. Absolutely love that.
Next time I'm coming, I'm going to smash the glass before I come on the show.
2 cans of beer like that.
Oh, man.
Brilliant stuff. Before I let you guys go, can I get your predictions for Watford? Starting with yourself, Deluded. How do you see that one going? Are we going to have a bit of an issue now that Watford have a new manager? Well, kind of a new manager, but he's an old manager, but he's a new manager. You know what I mean? How do you see that one going? Are you confident ahead of that?
Do you know what? I'm going to be positive. I'm going to say 2-0 Arsenal, but I am scared of the new manager. I'm not, because you're thinking, let's go there. Let's go with our front 3, like Turkish said. Let's power more misery on. They can't buy a win at the moment. They're bottom. They've managed to keep less clean sheets than us. And as an Arsenal fan, that's amazing to hear. But you're almost scared is that these players are now fighting for their futures. Players that were always going to play under the previous gaffer are not in the side. Players that ain't going to get a look in. New old manager has come back. You're scared of the revitalization thing, and you always look at it. When teams seem to go through this sort of thing, how many times have we been here? And it's Arsenal they play, and it's Arsenal they use to kind of kickstart them to go and do something else. Because as much as I love my team, out of all the top 6, you could look at United now and say them, but typically you fancy Arsenal. You know, if your fans chant for you away from home and you get behind us, get behind them and whatnot, you have half a chance. So we've got to be wary. And we won last year at Watford, but was it the best of performances? The year before that, we obviously lost. So 2-0 Arsenal, bad case scenario, 3-1. It is what it is. I think we'll walk away 3 points, hopefully.
Turkish, how do you see this one unfolding?
Literally, yeah, he just said everything I said to do. Like, it's Arsenal's way to give a new manager their first win or a new player their first banger or whatever it is. It's the Arsenal way in it. But I look at last season and they went down to 10 men early and they still put it all over us the rest of the game. And they should have actually won the game with 10 men for 80 minutes. Hopefully, we've learned our lesson. I'm gonna go for positivity again. I'm gonna go for a 3-1 Arsenal win. I think we'll concede because they're very physical, especially if Deeney plays and he knows how to get under the skin of players like Socrates. And like the perfect striker against Socrates and Luis is a Deeney. There's going to be one side that's going to win that battle and they're both going to go for it full on. So I see goals in it. I think Pepe will get his first Premier League goal. I said it against Liverpool. I said it against Tottenham. He's been close twice, but now is the time to just bury it, move on, and he'll be our player of the season, Nicolas Pepe.
Hopefully.
Stuff. Fingers crossed. Let's touch on some of the predictions here. Duckspeak82 says we need to go at Watford from the first and not get bullied. 3-1.
True.
Tony Flowers says 4-0, but then he says no, we'll win 2-1. So I think he's going to go with the 2-1 in the end. Nimsy Lot says 2-1 as well. Tony also says Pepe will rule the Prem. Fingers crossed he does. Just before we lock off the stream, don't forget on Tuesday night, 9:30 p.m, the fans phone in. You can call us live on air. I'll be taking your calls. Love doing this. It's always great fun. Some great callers always. So if you are interested in dialing on, all you need to do is DM us at Chronicles_AFC for more information. So yeah, that's that. Deluded, do you want to let everybody know how they can follow you and how they can subscribe to your channel as well? Which is brilliant, by the way.
YouTube, Deluded Gooner. I'm all over there. I mean, Turkish has been bringing me on the supporters club a lot. Shout out to Turkish for always helping me and whatnot. Socials, Deluded Gooner 04 and everything from Twitter to everything really. Snapchat, the only exception. D Gooner 04.
Brilliant stuff. And Turkish, how can people keep up to date with yourself?
Turkish LDN. If you search that on YouTube, search that on Twitter, search that on Instagram, that's me on all them social media platforms. And got a supporters club on AFTV. Harry's been on there. Well, once, isn't it, Harry?
Yeah, once, yeah.
Get you on there again ASAP, and Deluded is more or less a regular now. Do you get me? So, So yeah, obviously just search Turkish LDN and you'll find me on there.
Brilliant stuff. Guys, don't forget the podcast is sponsored by loserpool.com, a fantastic betting game where you can win up to £1,000 and it's completely free to enter this week. They're running a special. Going to leave you with a brief message from them as we lock off. Big thanks to my guests tonight, Deluded Gooner and Turkish, for jumping on Stone Cold Steve Austin and we'll be back very soon tomorrow, in fact, with a Watford preview. We'll be joined by one of the gents from the Watford podcast who will be sharing some insight into what's gone on over there in the last few days. Until next time, take care.